But now what I know is, and I'm certain about this, is anytime anyone does something brand new, they feel those things. And what makes a really successful person, what makes a really high performing person is just the courage and the willingness to be a beginner again.
Welcome to Behind the Knowledge, a best hour podcast where we dive deep into the lives and stories of inspiring coaches from all walks of life. The two hosts of this show are me, Pat Barber, and my good friend and fellow coach, Todd Occhiuto. Each week, we'll sit down with the most amazing coaches we can find, uncovering their unique paths, the challenges they've faced, and passions that continue to drive them. Whether you're a seasoned coach, an aspiring one, or simply somebody who likes listening to stories of how people achieve the success that they have, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by the powerful stories and insights from the world of coaching. This is Behind the Knowledge. Let's jump in.
All right, we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Knowledge, where our goal is to bring coaches from all walks of life together, get to know them, hopefully gain some insight from their perspective and wisdom from the years they've been coaching. And to start the show off, I kind of want to define what coaching is and the lens that we're going to view that through. For us here at Behind the Knowledge, coaching is the art of eliciting change in other people. So we've got teachers, and teachers deliver information, and that may lead to change. But I think the difference between what separates out a teacher and a coach is a coach takes the next step, makes it individual for the person, and allows them to have some sort of psychological or physiological change. And there are coaches from many walks of life. Hopefully we're going to bring ones on from all different spaces. But we've got a banger today in Michael Cazayoux. I'll go over him in just a second. But with me, I've got Mr. Todd Occhiuto. Todd is a level 4 staff member. He's been not a level 4 staff member. That sounds very foul. He's got a level 4 staff member. No, Todd is a level 4 coach, CrossFit level 1 staff member. He's a mentor, and he even mentors the mentors. He reviews my after action reports. So he's like what I am, but a level higher. Todd is out on the East Coast. He runs Drive Fitness. It's spelled wrong, but you can find him if you Google Drive Fitness and remove an E somewhere. With me today, I have Mike Cazayoux. Mike is a longtime friend of mine. He's one of my favorite humans I've ever interacted with. He's got a unique background and story, so I'd hopefully get into that. But some stuff that he's listed out here that are important to know. 2 times CrossFit Games Champion. He co-founded and sold Brute Strength. If you know anything about the CrossFit community, Brute Strength is massive in that programming world. He started the Brute Strength podcast, which later turned into the Mike Cazayoux podcast. It was at one point in time number 4 on all of the health category in Apple Podcasts, which is awesome. He's married to one of the most amazing women in the world named Adi. Adi, who I mispronounce her name all the time. I call her Addie. She started Working Against Gravity. He came on board, and they took Working Against Gravity and sold that into one of the largest nutrition consulting companies that exists out there. He himself has spent thousands of hours on his own personal development, thousands of dollars on his own personal development. And again, like I said, his biggest accomplishment is somehow landing a D and having 2 amazing kids. But right now, one of the reasons I really wanted to bring him on is he does soul-searching adventures specifically for men. And that is a lot of the lens that I want to talk through with Mike because I took on one of his adventures, and it was absolutely life-changing in ways that I can't even begin to express via words. So hopefully we'll get into that, let him talk some more on that. But I wanted to start the show off before we jump into the actual coaching with just one win you've had recently and maybe one struggle you've had recently. Because we do this in our Knowledge Pro calls, and it just helps set the tone for kind of what's going on in our lives. I'm going to start so you guys don't have to think about it too much. The win I've had recently is I did a swimming workout, and it was like a breath hold style workout from 2001 in Greg Glassman's old program on .com, and I nearly drowned. But I didn't, and the win was not drowning and working through the like psychological.
I noticed that you didn't drown.
I'm panicking. This is so bad, but I made it, and I survived, and I pushed through it. So that was my win. And my struggle is I'm going to share my screen real quick. Screen share window. If you're squeamish, look away.
That's you?
Oh, that is my leg.
What is that from?
Last night. That was from last night. If you're just listening to this, there's a giant gaping, about 3-inch long about a half-inch deep wound on my leg that went through the fascia. I have 11 staples and 4 stitches in the fascia on my right leg right now because I was setting down a rooftop camper that had a metal piece bent out, and it just, it was, it made an interesting evening last night. So that's my one struggle. Todd,
Wow.
give me a win.
That's great to follow that up. My win this week is I was able to take my fitness outside of the gym, and I went and played some pickup basketball for probably like the first time in 8 or 10 years. And it is amazing how different that type of fitness is, but how much fun it was to get out there and play again. I felt like I was 90 the next day trying to walk around and move, but it was a blast to do it, and I look forward to doing it more. And then I don't know that my struggle is quite the same to the same extent as yours. Mine is just trying to figure out how to navigate not getting too consumed with work and try to step away a little bit and a little more often and do some more things that I enjoy, even though I enjoy my work, but not get too overwhelmed and too consumed with that.
Hell yeah, man. Awesome. Michael?
The biggest win is I've been writing a lot more music lately, and I would say most of the songs suck, but because I've been writing more and more, I've accidentally written some that people are super stoked about. And there is no feeling like creating a piece of art or music and having people really enjoy it. It is such a good feeling for me. And it's really significant because for my whole life, I had a story that, all of these other people are creative. It comes naturally. I'm just not one of them. And then I discovered my love for being creative. And so it's just like it feels like a full circle moment. And I'm being able to rewrite this story that I've had about myself and just really express myself. So that feels really great.
Do you think that the creative thing with regards to that was centered around creative things growing up, or usually in the like drawing arts or like the actual like art space versus like other types of art? Because like, it's funny, Todd is one of the most meticulous human beings I know. He's an actual artist who sells art. Like he's done shows and does that stuff. But
I've gone through the same process. It sounds like, Michael, you have, because my whole life I didn't think I was artistic, and I always appreciated other art and street art especially. And then one day, after going and always looking for it, I just decided to start playing with it. And there's this freeing sense of like, one, creating things, and number two, having other people like it. And then also, because you didn't think you were artistic or creative, that's, for me, it's not part of my identity at all. And so I'm like, I can do this just because I enjoy doing it and it's cool. And if you like it, that's cool. And if you don't, it doesn't bother me at all. So I'd be curious to know if it's a similar feeling for you, where there's no pressure for it to be good. And then when somebody else likes it, it's like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. A few loops open there. So why I had that story first is, yes, Pat, I thought that creativity was only about drawing or playing music, that type of thing. And I had no idea that it could be applied to the way you set up your physical environment, your home, your business, the way you live your life. So that was part of it. The biggest part is that, I grew up in the deep South, and I remember being in the choir, for instance. This is one experience, and hearing some other people talk about it being gay. And I'm like, I don't want to be seen as gay. So I quit almost immediately. But I obviously, like, I wanted to sing. I also played the piano, same kind of thing. I don't know if this was younger, but I don't know if they used the word gay, but my friends laughed at me after one of my recitals, and I quit almost immediately. And so I had all of these very clear experiences of feeling like it wasn't cool.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have any role models, any people that I looked up to that did any sort of, what I would call artistic endeavors where I grew up. And so then I just didn't do any of those sorts of things. And so then when I became an adult and became more interested in them, I continued to think like, I just am not good at that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, your question, Todd. So I'll give you a little story. This was a huge breakthrough for me. I started playing music during COVID and have played almost every day since. But after a year or so, I had been thinking like, I feel like I could start writing my own songs and creating my own lyrics, but you must have to go to music school or something to do that, right? Like that's advanced shit, and I'm not advanced. And then I went to see my cousin play music in downtown Austin. I had a couple drinks. I was feeling really inspired and kind of loose. And I was in the Uber on the way back home. And I remember Googling how to write songs Reddit. And the first post that came up, I think it changed my life. And I now apply this principle in a lot of different areas. The thread that came up was titled 100 Silly Songs. And it had like 500 upvotes. The guy said, if you want to write great music, just commit to writing 100 silly songs. Just have fun with it. Just play. And create a lot of volume. Just put a lot of stuff out there. And then along the way, you'll accidentally make something good. But then don't all of a sudden try to make good music. Go back to making more silly songs. And so to get back to your question, Todd, when I'm in that place of how could I make something that makes my friends laugh, for instance, or makes me laugh, that's when I have written things that I feel so good playing, and it ends up that people, enjoy that stuff more. And I think that's the type of mindset you want to be in with any creative endeavor. It should feel playful. And if there's a pressure, I listen to a lot and read a lot of Rick Rubin's, ideas. And he's really big on, as soon as you start thinking about how this is going to land for the audience, you've lost it. You can't create great work from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be more for yourself, right? You're creating your art. Let it be what it is.
Yes.
I think especially for painting, Pat made mention of how analytical my brain is and everything's numbered or black and white. So the painting was so challenging and so rewarding because what I came to realize is whatever's in my mind and I want to paint or create is not going to turn out exactly that way. It's like the painting itself has it's going to make the decision what it's going to be. I'm going to give it some influence, but ultimately it's going to decide. And so figuring out how to be all right with that was really, really challenging as I started doing it. But the more I've done it, the more I enjoy it, along with the fact that ultimately nobody knows what it's supposed to be other than whatever image you had in your brain. So if you don't like it because of that, no one's going to see that because they didn't see the image before, right? So
it's so interesting, like your upbringing with someone having that initially happen to you younger and set the tone for what you thought being artistic was, or like going and singing. Like I had the exact opposite, where the cool kids were good at performing. So it was like my school was a performance arts school. And so like every year, the very first day of school, you'd have to stand up in front of the rest of school and sing a song a cappella. And it was like, and no matter how good you were, and
so cool.
It was really cool because like by the end, when you're a senior, you don't give a shit. Like you stand up and you're like, you could say twinkle, twinkle, little star, I'm out. Yeah. But like, but the thing that was cool about that was that the cool kids got the good roles because they were good, and so it was like this whole, like that hierarchy was flipped on its head. It was like, instead of you being lame for pursuing this thing that's the artistic thing, it was like that was part of the expression. But I never put the terminology of that being creative because it was just like that's what you do is like you go and you perform. And it's only been in my adult life that I realize I need creative outlets. Like for me, it's like making videos, or I sung for a band for years, so writing songs was really fun. But like thinking about how to communicate internal things is like my creative fun that I do. But yeah, no, dude, so awesome. So what's one struggle you're going through right now?
So the way that I'm spending most of my work hours right now is I joined a sales team working for one of my mentors. His name is Evan Pagan. And the biggest reason that I did it is because I feel like sales has been a weak spot in my entrepreneurial game for a long time. And it seemed like an opportunity to really master the skill. I'm on a team with some very experienced, masterful salespeople who I get a ton of feedback from. And the reason this is like, what's going well there is I'm learning so much so quickly. What's not going well is I suck at it. And I think part of it is I'm a very empathetic person. And so I'm talking to people that want to grow their coaching businesses, executive coaches, life coaches, et cetera. And he sells a bunch of programs that help people grow their businesses. And so many people tell me how deeply they want to change and they want to grow it. And then they give me all of these excuses about why it's not the right time. And because I'm so empathetic, I just sort of buy their stories rather than standing for them, for their future self, and just reflecting back to them what I've already heard. And it's really fascinating because as a coach, and you've seen me in this space, Pat, if I'm working with someone on, helping them create a better marriage or get more inner peace, I'm very blunt and direct with them, and I have no problem standing in the fire and having them be really uncomfortable. But there's like a bunch of unwinding of old stories about what it means to be a salesperson that is still getting in my way.
I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. And maybe Todd, you can speak to this. Like because I don't understand that space at all. Like I'm like, you and I both are willing to stand in the fire with most areas and just like challenge somebody and have a contrarian view. And like, I'm totally cool talking. If someone's like, hey, how much do you make in a year? Totally cool saying it. How much is your house? Like, nothing about my own personal stuff do I have an issue talking about? You can ask me about the most intimate thing, open book style. But for some reason, if I go to like sell myself, I hate it. And it feels icky and gross. And I don't, or ask somebody for money, or like nothing about it feels good. And I don't know where that narrative came from. And it sounds like you're working through that right now, like of how to be comfortable being like selling. And what do you do there? Todd, what?
That's interesting to me because with your previous businesses, weren't you selling online programs and weren't you selling like online nutrition coaching? So to me, it's like when I own an affiliate, right? I sell memberships on a daily, weekly basis, and it's easy to sell because I know my product. I'm confident it's going to solve the problems that the people outline in front of me. So you understand the problems, you uncover those things. Then I provide this as a solution, and then it's easy to kind of stand on that and sell it and, take their money. So I'd be curious to know, is there a disconnect between the product that you're selling? It sounds like it's obviously is something that that they need and they are telling you that they want it. So I'm just curious there because it seems like you've done some selling, obviously, with as successful as you've been with your previous endeavors. So it's like, what's the difference here compared to what you were doing previously?
Right. So most of our revenue in the previous businesses came from just marketing. People would come in through podcasts and social media and they'd hit a landing page and sign up. So I love creating that because it's giving value to people regardless of if they sign up. Then I've been on hundreds of sales calls where people sign up for the call. They know exactly what I'm going to pitch them. Okay. And what the call is about. They're not completely cold people or leads, in the sales industry, but they're kind of cold. They're people that have opted in to watch a webinar or something like that. And so there's not as much trust built yet. And here, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is this. I thought that growing up that selling was sleazy, that those words were just like synonymous. That was the first word that would come up when I would think about selling. And now I see that there is a way that a sales process can be a service, even if the person doesn't buy anything. Because, for instance, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Something just happened over here. The calls that I'm getting on, we're diving into essentially where people are at in their business, how badly they really want to change. And then we talk about in very vivid detail where they want to go. And then we try to figure out if they know how to get there. Even if they don't buy anything, that information, hearing themselves say those things out loud, like really feel what's important to them, how important it is, to see where they want to go, and then to admit them to themselves a lot of times, like, no, I don't really know how to get there. Or, hey, I've just been telling myself I want this for 5-10 years. I really haven't done anything about it. That's really valuable. And when I can stand in that place, I'm just so much more authentic myself, and
Right.
it just feels like a more, just a conversation that I want to be in.
But it must be hard to get there in a cold setting sometimes, like because we're with a slightly colder lead. Because I think what Todd you're speaking to is like when someone walks in your gym, they've already made like 12 decisions ahead of time.
Yeah.
that they're there. Like it's not really a sale. It's like, hey, yeah, no, we got some good shit. Why don't you come on in? You know, like because I've done that throughout the years, no problem. But when I'm like, buy my T-shirt, you know, it's like you don't need to buy my T-shirt. Like it doesn't. If you want to, you can. But like, I feel weird trying to sell you my T-shirt. I like that. So sit in the place of like find a way to make the conversation valuable, regardless of the sale at the end. That seems like a good. If you're selling something that is to a colder audience, how can you have a conversation that they get something from? And when you sit there, it was easier. I like that. So currently you're working in sales, and you're still running the soul searching retreats. And those are your two kind of jobs right now, right?
Yeah. And we're also we have a new project that could turn into a business. It's called the Summit of Love. And that's with our relationship coach that we've had for 8 or 9 years. Her name is Annie Lala. And then her husband, Eben, whose team I'm working on. So what we're creating with that is we're bringing together couples that have been together for 5 or more years to create community and to find other inspiring couples to, be friends with, to challenge them, to, gain inspiration from. And then we're going to bring in a lot of the world leading experts in the relationship space. So we're doing one of those, our first one next week, and then we'll do another bigger one in the fall, and then we'll see.
Sick.
Might continue.
Sick. And so what was your very first coaching experience? What was the first, if you look back on it, was the first time you were like, I'm not a coach, I'm coaching? What was that?
CrossFit classes for sure. Yeah, CrossFit classes at Ute CrossFit in Salt Lake City, working for Tommy Hackenbrook.
Nice. Do you remember the first conversation where you went from like, hey, I'm not a coach to I am a coach?
What do you mean by that? Like how I describe myself?
No, like what was the like, I'm stepping into this role, I'm now going to deliver this information? Because like you go from a place of like, I'm just receiving information to all of a sudden I need to be in a place of now I need to deliver this in a way that someone else can hear it. And I do you remember any of that time of like what that was like?
Like many CrossFitters, when I found it, I became obsessed really quickly. And then I can't remember details, but I imagine as soon as I realized that the L1 was a thing and you could learn to teach this, I did it as quickly as I could. I've always been a leader everywhere I've gone, and want to share and teach and coach before I thought I was coaching. And so, yeah, that's a part of it. Another part is I just got so much from CrossFit, both mentally and physically, and wanted to give back and wanted to share what I was learning. So that was it.
Okay. So what was your journey through coaching then? So you started coaching at Tommy's gym, you then moved into, and then how did you get to soul searching and selling?
Yeah. So even before I found CrossFit, I was in rehab, which and immediately I just fell in love with psychology. I just saw how the therapist could tell me a thing and I could say a thing, and then my whole perspective on my life changed. Like all of my feelings changed. And I was so, I geeked out on it so hard. And so when I started college right after rehab, I thought I was going to be a social worker and then a psychologist. And my real love was, and dream was, I want to help people feel their emotions, express themselves more clearly, build better relationships, have more inner peace. That was always the North Star for me. And then I found CrossFit around the same time. And so my physical coaching evolution was CrossFit classes to I graduated college, and I was about to apply for physical therapy school, but then I was offered a strength and conditioning coach job at Southern Utah University by the husband of one of my teammates, my CrossFit teammates. And I was like, huh, that's totally out of left field, not at all what I was thinking about. But if I'm going to take an exciting opportunity like this, now is the time. So I tried it out, and I really loved it. And one of the things that was a pivotal moment for me is I met this guy, Jake Hutton, who I think you know, Pat.
Yeah.
And Jake, I got to SUU thinking, like, I prayed at the altar of CrossFit. I thought CrossFit was the only way to train the body. And I got there and was making some suggestions to them. We were training D1 football players, gymnasts, etc. And he very respectfully kind of laughed at me for that. And he was and continues to be one of the most knowledgeable people about the human body and performance in particular that I've ever met.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be working side by side with this guy.
Yeah.
And he kind of took me under his wing and introduced me to the world of human performance in general, not just CrossFit training.
Right.
And so I loved that. I'm very driven by learning. And so I loved getting to work with him. I hated that city that I was in. I just had no friends. It was very LDS, like Mormon. And so that wasn't good for me. Then I got a job working at LSU in their strength and conditioning department. And I'll spare you the details, but someone hooked me up with a job there. And for anyone in the sports world, especially for someone coming from, like, I grew up in Louisiana, that was the holy grail. Like, that was literally the end of the road.
Yeah. 100%. I can see that being in the South.
And so at this time, when I joined LSU, I was mentally, I was in the place of, I'm still very unsure if this is the world I want to be in, like this industry, but I'm going to find it out here because this is the pinnacle. And if I don't like it here, then I'm not going to like it anywhere. And what I found was it was extremely stimulating to be in that environment, like working with future A-list NFL players, future Olympians, etc. Very like fun, exciting, stimulating. And it just, at the end of the day, it felt purposeless to me to be helping the top 1% get 1% better. It just wasn't for me. And that became clear in a little bit less than a year. And so
Real quickly,
then
I feel exactly the same. And I know a lot of coaches who I think are some of my favorite coaches ever are like that. And what do you think that is, the difference between someone like you or myself? And I actually don't know how you feel, Todd, but I'm assuming similar, that you much prefer working with the masses, so to speak, than the 1%. What's the difference in a coach who's like, I want to specialize and make those people 1% better, and I want to specialize still, but like make anyone I come across the best version of themselves? Like, what is that difference, do you think? Have you examined that at all?
I'm not sure. I'll examine it right now. One thing is, in my experience in college sports, is almost all of them don't want to be in the weight room. They signed up to play ball, not to lift weights. And that's not always the case. They're, especially like when it comes to walk-ons and things like that, like they're stoked for everything. But the people that I worked with didn't, like, you had to motivate them.
Right.
And I didn't really like that. I like people that are eager to work for me or work with me and to take direction and to, just to work hard. Another part of it is, going back to my love of psychology. Like it's important to me to be working with people on multiple levels, not just the physical. And so everything that I would go on to do in the future gave me that opportunity to have conversations about, performance mindset. And then it just slowly has progressed into, like, I would say, deeper and deeper places.
Okay.
Is there any feeling of like, when I work with higher level athletes, it's like I'm kind of irrelevant. Like they could work with any other trainer and they're still so high level that it's almost like what I'm doing is so, the amount of impact is so little, I feel like, too. So to your point of like, they're less motivated. I feel like the impact that I make, they're a great athlete. They're going to be a great athlete. They do a little bit, they're going to get better. It's like, it's hard to be motivated and inspired to keep working with those people, in my opinion. So I feel the same way for sure.
Yeah. And the idea, I've never had this thought, but this feels true. For those environments, you have to be a cheerleader. Like if you're having to motivate them, you're a cheerleader. And that I just wasn't interested in that.
I mean, you'd make a great cheerleader, though. I feel very.
I think so. I'm very, sexually fluid and
super, absolutely, yeah. Like you can never figure out what side you're on. So what was the next step after that? So you had that realization, and then you went where?
And then I started Brute Strength with Tommy Hackenbrook and my partner Matt Bruce and Matty B. And what I loved about it was, I think I'm going to probably contradict myself a little bit, because what we started off, our first program was geared towards people that were wanting to compete at regionals and the games. So those are like the top 1%ers in CrossFit. And so, but it was way more compelling to me.
Well, I think especially at the time, those people were just ravenous for information. So they were super motivated to come and, do whatever you wanted, because it was if I had to say, it's like it's the art of exercise. It's the sport of exercising. So what you were into, they were like, yeah, tell me how to exercise better, versus hey, versus the other side.
You weren't having to be a cheerleader and motivate them to want to do it. They wanted to do whatever you guys had because of how successful you had been, right?
Yeah. That's right. So started Brute Strength and got onto social media really for the first time. And back then I had a shitload of fun on Instagram. It was, I was 22, 23 and not very professional. And so I was just very myself, saying a lot of raunchy things, trying to be funny. And I had a lot of fun and it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
And so we grew and we brought on more and more team members. And looking back on it, it was like a slightly more professional version of a fraternity. It was just like a bunch of bros coaching together and trying to create a business like by the seat of my pants. I had no clue what I was doing.
Right.
But I was fortunate to meet some great mentors in the business realm that really helped me. And I enjoyed, and so at the time I was like the head coach and overseeing all of the programming. And I continued to enjoy that for 2 or 3 years. And then that just became, I just didn't care about programming very much anymore. Tried to figure out ways to keep myself motivated, couldn't do it. And so hired a new head coach, and then just focused on the business.
Wait a second.
During that time, I started...
Don't gloss over the fact that you coached my games team.
I would say my proudest moment, certainly as a coach, if not my entire life, was I coached the NorCal team in 2014. And if it weren't for very poor judges,
Ooh,
a
easy,
rigged
easy,
system,
easy.
a rigged system. No, Todd, I know you were out there.
I wasn't.
They paid you off.
I wasn't judging the team, so I'm all right. You can say what you want.
Somebody was definitely paid off. We would have won 6-7 years in a row.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Okay, just now that we got that,
coach those guys. I got to coach some really cool people. Our company coached some of the best in the CrossFit game. That was super fun to be a part of. And then when I released the reins of coaching, I was still trying to implement mindset coaching in our programs, and I think all of it sucked. But I was just trying to help our athletes as much as I could. But I just really didn't have a lot of consistency in what I was doing, and I didn't have a system for it. And so I don't think it was very good.
but it has to suck, Mike. Like, I think that's
It has to suck in the beginning.
It has
Yes.
to. Like, that's I like if you take away anything as a coach from some of this, like, you have to start, and then it has to suck, and then you have to be able to reflect back on it and be like, well, that sucked, but now I'm here and it's better. Like, it has to. So even though you look back on it like that, like, we have, if you don't look back on it and go, it sucked, then you fucking probably suck now still. It's like,
or you're just not trying anything new.
Yeah.
So let me brag about myself for a second. This is a superpower of mine. I just so frequently throw myself into something brand new that I quote unquote have no business doing, whether that be playing music on stage now, which I do occasionally, taking a selling job, doing a totally new career. I just do this over and over and over. And in the past, I thought all of the discomfort and insecurity and self-doubt that I feel, that must mean that I shouldn't go in that direction. But now what I know is, and I'm certain about this, is anytime anyone does something brand new, they feel those things. And what makes a really successful person, what makes a really high performing person, is just the courage and the willingness to be a beginner again.
Yeah, and the humility to do so. And I think it's so hard for people, especially as we age and we get good at certain things. It's easy to fall into the trap. Like you made mention, it's like what you were doing with Brute was going well, but you weren't inspired by it anymore. Mm-hmm. How many people do you know that just are like, well, I don't really care about this anymore, but I'm doing well with it. I'm making a good living. Everybody knows me as this. This is my identity. This is who I am and what I do. And I guess I'm just going to keep doing that. It's way more challenging to decide to make the decision to be a beginner, and it's scary. I'd be curious to know, what is it? So you say that you continually do that. Like, what made you lean into that fear, that discomfort, that insecurity? And I'm sure it gets easier to do so the more you've done it. But those first couple times had to have been like, holy shit, why am I doing this? Like, what is it that made you do that?
Well, I think that, let's see. I was deeply humbled by my recovery experience. I was a drug addict as a teenager, and then went through a year and a half of treatment, and then had a terrible relapse, and it really scared me. And so then I was in meetings, AA meetings, from age 15 on, with people that were literally living on the street, had needle marks all over them. They're 50, 60 years old, and had just ruined so much of their life. I was so humbled and scared by that experience that I knew in that realm, I had to have a beginner's mind. I had to be willing to take direction, to show up every day to improve my mental well-being. And probably around 18, 19, I started hearing these phrases, which you've heard something like this, about fear, which is things like the only way through fear, the only way to get over fear is through it. And things like fear is false evidence appearing real. I just had all of these things being told to me over and over and over in recovery and AA meetings. And it was just really branded into me that most of our fear is just an illusion, right? We're afraid of looking bad. And if we just jump into action, we become more competent really quickly and we get over our fear. And what has me leaning into things more and more quickly now is the feeling of resisting something out of fear and then exerting the courage to actually do it. It releases so much positive energy and has such a positive impact on my life. I live for it.
Yeah.
I love seeing myself be afraid of something and then step up to the plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. The freedom to be able to be willing and able to do that, and then to be able to handle the outcome, right? Good, bad, or indifferent is pretty cool. I've got to imagine that those are lessons that you take and try to teach in your soul searching adventures. Is that a big part of it?
Let's see. I would say a big part of what I do is try to create a space for people to get in touch with what they really want. And what I mean by that is everyone thinks they know what they want, right? But most people have no idea the things they think they want are just what their parents told them they should want. It's right. What all of their friends want. It's what they see on social media. And so, one of the ways I create that space is I invite people out to spend 5-10 days with me in nature, where all of the inputs are put away for a while so they can get in touch with what they really want. Then when they're clear about what they really want, we talk about like how ready, willing, and able are you to actually start taking action on that. Then they get clear about what the next steps are, in order to move towards their goals and what they really want. And then I hold them accountable to taking those actions. So yeah, I would say that's a really big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be.
I think that's one of the bigger steps that I appreciated about, because of the trip I went on with you, is there is a sense of removal of external stimuli. Like, you have to really sit with yourself. There's a series of really amazing questions and experiences that allow you to examine things a lot closer. I'm by nature someone who does that naturally, but with all the stimulus, it's very hard to get clear on that. And then I think one of my favorite things is this like pressure to take action post that, because I think that's where a lot of us slip, is like, we consume all this information, or we know all this stuff. We even examine self, like talk therapy. You examine self, and then it's like, well, fucking now what? Like, now what do you do? Like, what's the step? What's the actual very fearful, like, what's the thing that you actually take action on and do differently than you previously did? And I felt like that was much easier to do coming out of the experience with you, of like, okay, I need to take this step. Here's my step. This is scary. And then it's better. But yeah, it's similar to what you were saying before, like that willingness to jump into that kind of fear, but get clarity on it first was huge. So
would you be comfortable with me sharing a little bit of your experience
for sure
out there, Pat?
Oh, of course.
So I'm remembering one of the really big things for you is that you looked at your relationship with your mom and you came out of it seeing very clearly like, oh, I really want a deeper relationship with her, and I'm going to go and lead in that way.
Right.
And I think a big part of that was that wasn't new information to you. What was new is how strong that felt.
Yeah.
How strong your desire was. And I think what caused that is, so we just need time to really feel the different parts of our life. We get so busy and caught up in our goals, our future, also our present day responsibilities and worries. And so, these deep longings and desires, like I want a better relationship with my wife, my father, my son. I want to be more creative. we don't have a lot of time to feel the impact of not having those things. We just don't feel the lack.
Right.
And so you had a big opportunity to feel what it's like feeling disconnected from your mom.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the clarity around removal, like you said, like you don't get time to feel it. Like if you're always, I'm starting to have a feeling, let me pick up my phone, or I'm starting to have a feeling, let me have a drink, or I'm starting to have a feeling, let me flip on the TV. Like there's always a way to distract from actually experiencing the thing. But the experience of it will highlight it for you and allow you to actually want to make the step in a different way. So that's why one of the reasons I think the thing is so powerful. Where did you go? Like when did you start okay, so you were coaching, you explored some more areas, you were running the business, and then when did you shift into the soul searching? Where did that journey go? Like how did that happen?
Yeah. So I sold Brute Strength to my partner, Matt Bruce, so that I could join a D at Working Against Gravity. And I did like a little bit of nutrition coaching, but not a lot at all. So I didn't coach for a while. Actually, I created a personal development program for about 30 of our staff members, and it was better than any of the other mindset stuff I had done in the past, but I still don't think it was very good. But I created like a pretty comprehensive program and took them through like a 3 or 4 month course. We ran the company together for 3, maybe 5 years. And then we sold, actually a little bit before we sold it, I started Soul Searching Adventures. And the way that it came up is I was on a retreat with someone, and he had us do an exercise. It went something like, what's the most audacious, adventurous thing you could imagine yourself creating in your career? Like, unbound by current circumstances, what can you imagine? And he had us draw it. And this idea for Soul Searching Adventures just poured out effortlessly. And so from that moment, I got home and I immediately put a date on the calendar 6 months in advance that I was going to do it. I started selling it with as minimal information as, like, just enough information to be able to sell it. I had no idea what I was going to do yet. Sold it out, 10 guys, and then, put a plan in place for what we were going to actually do on it. And, we did the first one. It went incredibly well, just like 10 out of 10 experience for me and all of the participants. And then we sold the business, I think 6 months later. And then, I just slowly started devoting more and more time to Soul Searching Adventures.
Are you a CrossFit coach who's feeling stuck in their development? You're not alone. Many coaches lack good guidance when it comes to how to develop as a coach. They either don't have strong examples they find themselves around, they may lack support from their gym owner, and they just feel unprepared going into their next credential. That's why we made the Knowledge Pro, to fill that gap. It's a mentorship program built for coaches like you. It uses the Knowledge Daily, our comprehensive video library, as well as extra content that we put directly into the Knowledge Pro on our live weekly calls twice a week to mentor you and get you to the next level of development. We've got progressions, we've got scales, we've got one-off tips and tricks, we've got full coached classes by level 4 coaches so you can see an example of what it means to do this job well. All of that will also be walked through each week on those live calls, so that you have a soundboard to bounce off of and a group of coaches looking to be better to help support you in your endeavors. Coaching isn't just knowing what to do, it's also knowing how to do it. And that takes 2 things. 1, an example, and 2, practice. Practice is on your end, you got to go out there and do it. We can help provide that example and the support with the Knowledge Pro. If you want to know more, click the link below and give the Knowledge Pro a shot. I look forward to seeing you on one of the next calls.
Everything that you've done has that common thread of coaching. So I'd be curious to know if there's anything like top of mind that you took from your coaching days at U CrossFit to what you were doing at Brute, to even you like the little bit of coaching that you did, the nutrition coaching, and even the personal development course that you put together for your staff. That's all coaching too. Like, what are the big ticket coaching items that you were able to pull from one experience to the next? That you continue to use to this day?
Okay, I'll give you one thing I've learned not to do and one thing I've learned to do. So the first thing that I've learned not to do, So when I was a new CrossFit coach, and really, for years, I was more interested in getting my own ego stroked as a coach. Like, look at me, how much I know, versus actually helping people improve their skills. And what that looked like was like someone would do a snatch or something, and I would point out 10 things they're doing wrong and need to improve on the next one. And what I've learned to do instead is give them 2 things that I love about their movement and 1 thing to work on at a time. And that just shows up like that. I think that's applicable in every form of coaching. Our self-esteem impacts our motivation to listen to someone and our ability to continue taking action when we're given direction. So I'm always thinking about how can I give them constructive feedback while, if possible, improving their self-esteem rather than lowering it.
Yeah.
So that's a shift I've made. Another thing learned to do, now I've come across a lot of coaches that I would consider are quite woo woo. They go into deep places and uncover a lot. And that's super beneficial stuff. And that's a part of what I do. But they don't hold them accountable for anything. And in the sport world, in the fitness world, accountability is king.
Yeah.
In the nutrition world, accountability is king. Yeah. And so when someone says they want something and they're going to take an action towards it, I'm always checking back in with them and making sure that they did it. And if not, like, why?
Yeah.
Right. Is there a mental block in place, a logistical block? Do you really want this thing? Like what's going on? And we figure out how to get them taking action.
I mean, that definition alone, I think almost helps separate out what woo is like the lack of empirical progress is kind of what makes something woo in the first place, right? Because you can have something that borders on spiritual, but still has tangible evidence of like being great for you. You're like, okay, look at these steps I made. What I did to make these steps was I aligned my chakras, and you're like, great. I don't care. You aligned your chakras, but you made the steps. Awesome. So in that case, it's like there's like evidence that what you did was true and it worked to some degree. And I think that's, to me, what separates out like good woo and bad woo is it's just like do these things that have no way of measuring, and we're gonna hope that it achieves some sort of result, versus we're gonna do these things that we can't really measure, but let's look at the outcome of it. And if you're actually improving and making steps forward, I don't care what the things you did were. Like you can call them woo, you can call them legit, whatever it is. Like let's experiment over here, but kind of that black box theory of like, we got inputs and outputs. Right now, you're currently doing this. What's going to go on here? Let's try this, and let's see if the output is what we want. But examining that output and making sure it's continuing to do the thing, I think, is the main separator between those, in my mind. Well, dude, I appreciate that. We're not going to keep you any longer. Where can people find you if they want to find you? Because I know you're doing a soul-searching adventure in like 9 months, and you've also got some other stuff coming up. So where can we find you if we need to?
Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about the trips, you can go to www.soulsearchingadventures.com. And I've also got a website, michaelcaz.com. And on there, you can subscribe to my newsletter. I haven't posted in a while, but typically I'm writing, I'll just call it soulful newsletters.
Yeah. You also write some fun poems and stories and music, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of that stuff and hearing your new awesome music that you're going to put out.
Thanks, brother.
Well, thank you, Mike. Todd, you have anything else?
Yeah, thank you, guys.
No, man, I appreciate it. This was fun.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Behind the Knowledge. Now, if you want help developing your coaching and to learn from us directly, check out the Knowledge Pro. There we host live calls with our coaches every week where we discuss content together and work on skills to improve our on-the-floor coaching ability. To learn more, you can head over to besthouroftheirday.com/the-knowledge. And if you found this content helpful, we're going to be releasing new episodes every week, so subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.